Welcome to Fat Cat Productions, News with a View. Your host, me, John A. Costa, and this is April 23rd, episode 56. My job today is to impart my wisdom. So I'm trying to slow my brain down to 55 miles an hour and get this message across to everyone. And it's a fair message, folks, but it's the truth. And we have a lot of people that cannot tolerate the truth now. And it's a major problem and getting worse. All right. In the news today, Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois, 5-term Democratic senator, says he's not going to run in 2026. This guy was probably the second in charge with Democrats as far as a bell ringer for them. His claim to fame, well, I think the straw that broke the camel's back for him was, I'm going to go back to this camera, was the fact that he voted for the stopgap budget measure. And, you know, the liberals and the progressives went nuts with him. And he just got so much backlash from that. And I think, you know, at 80 years old, he's like, hey, I can't keep doing this. You know, you're not happy. Let me pass the torch on. I think it was in 2000 or 2001, he came up with the Dreamer Act, and that was to give children of illegals a pathway to citizenship, which then turned around and became anchor babies, where we are in trouble today. So Dick Durbin was the key behind that. He was the one that started the Dreamers. It wasn't Obama. It wasn't anything this was Dick Durbin. And it had some bipartisan push behind it. But instead of fighting to make people citizens, they tried to do it through the back door. And, that's just not the way it should have been done. That whirling you're hearing, I have the ceiling fan on. It's hot here today. And we are in our 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. power reduction curfew here in South Carolina. So if we want to run any of our high-powered, high-usage energy devices, our rate goes from about 8.5 cents per kilowatt hour to 13, well, ours is $8 an hour, kilowatt hour. So it goes from about 8 cents to $8. Yeah. Yep. more than likely after this month, because this just kicked in for a lot of people in my area, I'm sure my podcasts will be going local and discussing a lot of things that is happening local. I probably will take one day a week to do what I call a local podcast of just things, in the area of Horry, Georgetown, counties of South Carolina. All right, enough with that. We were talking about Dick Durbin and his 30 years in office, 5 terms as senator, and I didn't particularly agree with his politics, but he served. So, thank you, Dick Durbin, for your services. Now, there are people already lining up because this is a big seat. Illinois, big seat. A Representative Robin Kelly is one of them. And I'm sorry, I know her name is Raja, like Keisha Thea. Lauren Underwood is one of them. The Lieutenant Governor, Stanton, should write this stuff down, Juliana, and State Senator Robert Palmer. Robert Peters. They're all looking for that seat. So that's going to be a hotly contested seat by the Democrats there. If I would have to take a guess, I would say that Stanton probably has the best chance of doing it because she's the most visible in the state. So I think she has a shot at that. But poor Dick Durbin took a beating from his fellow Democrats for joining with Schumer and others to pass the stopgap budget spending bill, where they had said, and rightfully so, was that a shutdown would have been disastrous. And that will take me into my next segue in. I don't want to talk too much about Dick Durbin because I don't like the guy. But he served, and like I said, he deserves recognition for that. The stock market. Now, I'm just going to use the S&P because that's the one I like. I could do the Dow, but they're kind of almost mimicking one another as far as percentage points lost. And that has shocked some people. I don't understand how these experts were like, this is unprecedented, or we had no idea. Yeah, Trump was saying he was going to do this for years, and this wasn't anything new. I don't think a lot of people thought that he would take the tariff gun out, and instead of just waving it around, because he was already doing that, and they were like, you're waving it around. And he first shot it into the air and got everyone's attention, and then pulled back, and the market kind of went back up again. And then he doubled down. And that became very serious. He started fighting with the Fed Chairman Powell, who the European markets looked to Powell as the steady hand of the ship here. That, yes, the president's going to steer it, but this guy is in charge of the money, and he's going to make sure that it doesn't go too far out of whack. Well, it did go out of whack. But people saying, the market crashed or anything like that, no. The market at its worst drop here retreated to probably, when did I look at that? Probably like June of last year is where the numbers were as if they are today. So a drop of when I count like 750 points now, and that 750 points was from February either 18th or 19th. I'm pretty sure it was February 19th. The S&P was like at 6,114 and change. And today it's at 53.90, which is a 750 point change. Now, if you take that and pound the numbers and go backwards on it and look at it and try to figure out, what exactly is going on, you're looking at probably a 14% retreat of the market. And yeah, that's pretty substantial. Now, it was lower, and the market has creeped up and will creep up. And now, Trump is saying, well, we're going to ease it up here and we're going to do that. The problem with Trump doing that is that, again, today he says red, tomorrow he says blue, and then he says gold, and no one knows what he's doing. And the markets don't react to a liberal, and the markets don't react to a conservative. But the markets will act to unpredictable. And this is what happens. Now, like I said, and I've said this before Trump was elected, and then even during my first podcast, that Trump does his best in chaos. As this is developing, and everyone's watching over here, you're seeing Russia now starting to get on board in a peace process. And in there, start reading about who is the biggest benefactor of Russian cheap oil. It's not China. It's not us. It's India. And India has been purchasing. Now, the problem with Russia is that normally Russia and all these ones, they want American money. They want cash. They want whatever the dollar is, and they can't because there's a sanction on them. And the United States, and this was during the Biden administration, had told Russia and India, all right, you want to sell your oil to India? We're not going to look the other way. We're just going to allow it, which it was strange to begin with, but I kind of understood what everyone had to do. If you put Russia into a really bad spot, then Russia has to react really bad. I mean, we think this is bad. Yeah, you don't want bad. So India had to pay them in rupees. So billions and billions of dollars in rupees. Now that's money exiting India and not being turned into anything because Russia can't, they're kind of being held up on what they can buy. So they have to go through another party like China and North Korea and, whoever is their allies to start offloading rupees to turn it back into cash. And so they want to get back into the market of selling oil. That was their money, and natural gas and liquefied gas for Europe. That was their bread and butter. And I've said this before, that Russia has so many resources that if they really wanted to, and it would serve them no purpose, but if I'm going down, you're going down too. So that's what you got to watch out for. Your worst enemy is an enemy that no longer has anything left to lose. They become fanatic. So they could release gold, they could release diamonds, they could release oil, they could release a lot of things and just crush the market. So you have to play very nice with these members. And certainly China doesn't want that because China is teetering financially. Their housing market and what was liquid assets of the working people that they allowed to have, I mean, that evaporated. That is gone. That is gone. And their banks, they're propping banks up. They're propping the yuan. They have so much that they're propping up. And the only thing they can prop them up with is with our treasury bills. And, they start selling that affects the bonds market. And the bond market got affected because people are selling bonds. Canada turned around and said, well, you kind of hurt us, we're going to kind of hurt you. But in the long run, the problem with, poking each other in the eye, never a good thing to do. So Powell, going back to Powell and the market, Trump, who was screaming, I want to get rid of this guy, why can't I? I should have the ability to fire anyone I want. Well, now is playing a lot nicer. But again, this is today's flavor. And I can't tell you what the flavor will be tomorrow. And like I said, unpredictability and uncertainty is what will drive the market crazy. I will say that tomorrow will be a good indication of what's going to happen with the markets, and Friday. And if we can kind of ease through everything to May, that will be okay. The other factor that people have to start to realize is that Christmas is coming. And most of the store inventories for holiday items have to be made now to come over, to be shipped, to be processed, to be delivered. You need at least 6 months lead time. Well, no one's buying anything with these tariffs. And if they go, well, we'll wait till September, you're not going to have a Christmas. I will say, for the most part, you won't even find Christmas lights in stores, you know, at Walmart, you know, $2.99 for a string of 50, the little bulbs, you know. You won't find them. They're gone. Because you got to remember, when they end their stock on Christmas, just that stuff, December 26th, it's 50% off, and then it's 75%. They just wipe their stock out, and they want to, you know, for them to store it, space costs them more money than that stupid thing was worth. So they get rid of it. You know, they make space for something new, like, you know, coffee pots and things like that. But that, if those orders don't go in, and I mean, that's for everything. Everything comes from China. Everything, we import everything. And this is Trump's, you know, this is what he's been saying. This is going to be a very sparse Christmas if there is no resolution within the next month and a half. I'm sure that your Walmarts and your Targets and, you know, whoever else is out there or left, you know, your Ace Hardware and some of these other people, they probably have sat down with their people in these countries to go, hey, I got a contract here. We just can't put it in because if the tariffs are still in effect, no one's going to be buying, you know, those $2.99 Christmas lights that we throw out there. You know, they're not paying $12 for it. They will just do without. That one string will have to work, or, you know, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're not going to put out Christmas lights this year. You know, if one of the strings don't work, or we could do this, well, we downsize. And that's what's going to happen. But that has a big, huge ripple effect. And again, then dock workers, truck delivery people, you won't need to hire Christmas help. And, you know, that's the ancillary things. So we're getting into a very critical time here. And this is why Trump wanted to do this all now. This is, I said it before. He has a very small window to do this in, and he has to make it painful. And he has to make it painful for everyone. And, you know, like I said, you go to a dentist with a toothache, and you're walking in that office hurting. And you're walking out of that office hurting. And then the next day, it's not hurting as bad, but it hurts. And then the next day, it's all right now. And by the third and fourth day, you're starting to feel better. Well, this is the same thing like this, though the pain period is longer and extended. This will be a tough time for people, but Trump now saying, Powell, he's safe. We're gonna do this. I think Powell won the argument. I think Powell won the argument with Trump, and telling him that, hey, we can lower interest rates, but we can't do it now. And I'm all for lowering the interest rates, but we can't have it. You can't have it both ways. So make a deal with Russia, get the oil out there, crash oil. And because remember, we don't sell, we sell oil, but we sell it, there are conglomerate of companies, and very few are U.S. Controlled entities. Everything that is here is controlled by the U.S. But other than that, they're, globally owned. So Trump crashing oil, not a big deal for him. They're still making billions. He's just going to make a little bit less. But if he doesn't get the markets going again, then I don't think there'll be a problem. I think this problem will be resolved before the midterms. If not, we're going to have bigger problems. But I think this will all be resolved, and I think he's going to have some surprises. He's going to come out and announce, certain things, and the market will go crazy. He likes doing that on Tuesdays. He's not a Friday, Monday person. And Tuesdays, he likes making these little announcements. He'll drive people crazy on Monday, might drive prices down. People could say, well, he's doing that, for his insider friends. If you know the animal, you don't have to. You don't have to live with it to know how it acts. So, but that's the big news, is that he's now backing off a little bit, or at least he says he's going to back off. It's Trump, the magician. Now you see it, now you don't, and look, it was here all the time. So, and for investors and for money managers and fund managers, this is a scary time, because to make up 14%, that's difficult. And if a lot of these people decide to put this money into a safe harbor, hey, you know what, this swing is killing me, I'll put it into a 4.6% 1-year CD. It's guaranteed. I don't have to worry. Boom. And if interest rates go down, look, I'm way ahead of the thing. The market will go up, and 6 months or a year, I'll jump back in. That's your little guy investors. Your big guy investors, yeah, they don't even look at CD rates, or they're controlling the S&P and Dow and Nasdaq, and the European markets and Chinese markets. That's where they make all their money. They're not making it over here. So that is the big news, that Trump is kind of backing down a little bit. The second thing where the Trump administration has backed down, and I would say that, no, he's reset the goal line. He moved the goal line. with Social Security, where he was saying that it, must be done in person. You have to register in person. Well, that becomes not feasible if you're reducing staff all over the place. So Social Security has announced that no, you could still apply by phone or the internet. And if you apply by phone or the internet and something looks squirrely, and in an article I read, they said they will have the technology to know. Yeah, who knows? Who knows? Who has that? Who's looking at it? That you think that person that's taking that information is looking and going, they're using a burner phone, or they're using, they're saying they're Mr. Smith, but it's Mr. Jones is showing up on the caller ID, or, So I don't know what they're going to use as the trigger for an in-office visit. But I'm sure people will complain about it. So people will complain about it. But that is one of the things that they said, to combat fraud. So we'll see where, what happens in the next 2 weeks, because this was supposed to take place April 14th, and they kind of said, yeah, we can't do that date. And they tried it before, and we can't do that date. So this is what we're going to do. And again, it's Trump. Could change tomorrow. You don't know. The other big thing that's making the news rounds, and it shouldn't, who cares? 60 Minutes. Bill Owens, the producer, 37 years with CBS. He was there almost as long as me. He said that he told the company in his resignation letter that he was causing the company the problem, and the problem they're having with the FCC and lawsuits and things of that nature. And so he opted to resign. A lot of people saying there wasn't an option. You go willingly, or we drag you down the hallway and kick you out the door. And they didn't want to do that. So I am sure that he has gotten some type of severance package to fall on the sword. Now, that is not going to change anything with the Trump lawsuit or any other lawsuits that are facing CBS / Paramount. Sherry Redstone had come out with a statement, and it was a good statement. It was very well thought out, and it wasn't chiding, one side and then the other. It was just saying, hey, we have to get back to put the facts out there, keep our mouths shut, and let our audience make the decision on whether or not the facts add up for them. But present facts, not suggestions, not opinions. It's unfortunate that it had to come down to this, but 60 Minutes, they did. It used to be called post-production or sweetening. You'd go back in and you might have an interview, and the interview, you only have 12-minute spot to take your interview out on 60 Minutes, because every person has their time. And then you got commercials and whatever. So, you might have 8 minutes, you might have 12 minutes. And if the interview you did was 35 minutes, well, they got to cut out some of the things where, people go, well, let me think for a second, or, they tell an antidote that doesn't fit the source, that they push that off to the side, and they tell the people, hey, we have the right to edit this. We're not going to, well, change the content. And that's what they normally would do. They just go, we have to take this, and we might speed up a little bit so we can compress it in. But, if we ask you a question, those questions will be answered. And if you answer them, they will be, this is what it is, and this is how it's going to go out. Well, allegedly with Harris, it was a nightmare. Probably CBS said, we can't use this. This is unusable, and they sat there and they go, well, what can you do? And, someone made the decision, well, we could take it and put it together. They're her words. But we have the technology to put it in a little bit more coherent. And, listen, those people, some of them were experts, in interviews and knew what, yeah, you'll clean this up, right? Yeah, okay. And instead of CBS going, no, it's an interview, this is how we're going to air it, they didn't. They sanitized it. And that became a problem. And there were people at CBS that goes, well, what are we doing? We don't do this. Now, it wasn't the average guy taking the edit piece with a line producer. Line producer's not making that call. That's going way, way up above. And, they sit there and then go behind them and give them, no, do it like this. How does this sound? How does this look? And they're all professionals. They know how to do it. They do that day in, day out. The 60 Minutes people and 48 Hours people and the sports editors and were amazing. Even the news editors were amazing editors. And it was their job. That's what they did all day long. So they could take a chicken sandwich and make it look like, a presentation of sirloin steak. And there were people at CBS that went, yeah, no, this is wrong. And it leaked out. And, Trump, fought like at first CBS said, no, we never touch it. Said that's the interview. And, Trump has friends too. And he has people on the inside. And they were like, no, you might. Listen, there's 3 doors. But I wouldn't go to door number 3. And I wouldn't go to door number 1. But I'm not telling you what door to go to. All right. So, they knew. And they got it. And, they embarrassed CBS. They embarrassed 60 Minutes. Harris, who, swore up and down, that was her, she couldn't. All the credibility. Zoop. It's like taking the air out of a balloon. And CBS, there's no way to recover from that. And this was just more of, you hate to say it because, the Dan Rather letter. And this goes back even further. Remember Dan Rather and the General? Dan Rather and Bush the First, and then Dan Rather with Bush the Second. And credibility becomes a key factor. It was that General Westmoreland? That's what I think it was. And you just lose your credibility. And you could be saying, hey, I'm holding a pen, and people look at you and go, you say it's a pen. I don't know. Let me see it right now. Let me see it do this. Let me see who made it, and then you have to justify and prove everything you're doing instead of your word. Sponsors aren't going to pay $60,000 a minute or $100,000 a minute to have people go, yeah, I'm not watching it, or wow, I don't know, doesn't sound right, they're talking more about what they just saw than looking at a commercial, and the sponsors are going, hey, we want people riveted. We don't want people arguing about it. So 60 Minutes is in big trouble. And of course you have all these people, crying over, Leslie Stahl, I can't believe this is happening. Yeah, believe it. Believe it. Sure, people like her were part of the problem. So, and that's what's going on at 60 Minutes. Now, of course, CBS and Sundance are in negotiations with Paramount to offload, and they're trying to clear as many legal cases, big legal cases, as they can, so that when they go to the FCC with the petition to merge or take over, that it's as clean as it could possibly be. And Sundance doesn't have to deal with that, because Sundance is going to just go in there and gut everything. I mean, you think anyone wants to deal with the news anymore? Sports is all going to be pay-per-view. It's just a matter of time before Sunday night, Sunday football is not on a pay-per-view channel only. These companies won't be able to afford the nut on buying, a whole year game, or maybe one game or 3 games, and they split it. But sports is just becoming untenable to keep out there and buying it. And with the NFL, everyone is still talking about the knee. Everyone's still talking about, Bud Light. Everyone's still talking about it. That hasn't gone away, folks. Has not gone away. And these companies think that we're getting better. Nope. So they got to be real careful. All right. My last thing of the day, it has to be Garcia and El Salvador. And of course we had 4 representatives from the Congresses trudge over to El Salvador on your tax dollars to the American Embassy to demand that action be done to facilitate the release of this poor man who was without due process removed from the United States. Well, I know that the Supreme Court has put a hold on the Alien Enemies Act of that President Trump has invoked to carry out some of these lightning deportations. And people are saying, oh, you still have to have due process. No. There's no mention of due process in that wording from 1798. So, with that, Trump can say that's an enemy of the people. You're out. Where people are upset, they think that you have to have a declaration of war. Now, that has been the case of late, and the last time this was used was, of course, World War II and the internment of the Japanese nationals and American Japanese citizens. So it has been used in our lifetime, but that was, under war. But there's nowhere in there that it states that is one of the keys that open the door to do it. Is a determination made by the President of the United States and a proclamation of such. And that's it. And I think there'll be a lot of people screaming, well, he could call, a grandmother who says, I hate Trump, and deport her to El Salvador. Well, if she's an American citizen, he can't do that. But if you have immigration status here, but are not a citizen, but just immigration status, meaning you're documented, we know you're here, and you're applying for citizenship, you're doing whatever it is that you need to do, then you're covered under some of our rights. But guess what? That ain't one of them. And yes, in that case, grandma could go to wherever she was from. The idea that President Trump is going to pay El Salvador to put our prisoners in, for one, I don't think that would, and you're not talking to, you're talking to one of the biggest conservatives there is. But that just won't fly. Because under cruel and unusual punishment, I would say that they would have a very good case, meaning the convicted individual, to exercise that. Because if we're not running that prison, we don't know what's going on there. And, they could be torturing them every day. And since we don't control that, we don't have a say in it. And even if we do have a say in it, it's in a foreign country under a whole different legal system. No. So I would say absolutely not. That will not happen to an American citizen. That will not happen. And just for you 22nd Amendment people screaming that Trump's going to run a third term, oh, please stop. Stop with that cry. Trump is not going to do a third term. No one's going to allow it. So stop going after the bait. And Trump sits there and laughs because you go after the bait. He triggers you. And a lot of you have Trump, dysphoria, syndrome, and you just say his word and, and it's like, hey, stop it. Stop it. You're adults. You're adults. Deal with it. I love when I see on a post, Orange Man, or Trump with a little T, or they can't even print his name without being triggered. They can't say his name. And then they go, the Orange Man. Well, how about, you don't think that's racist? calling him the Orange Man as a means of identification. I mean, think about it. And this is what upsets me is that people they're not logical. They're not logical. And I see people posting that, we should go in there and forcibly get Garcia because he has do-right processes that must be adhered to. Well, he's a citizen of El Salvador, and El Salvador has rights too. And their laws say they can hold them. So their rights don't matter, only our rights matter. Can you explain that to me? No, they can't. And then they're cursing at you or calling you names. And I said, I always know when I win an argument with anyone, be them liberals, conservatives, whatever, is when they resort to the name calling and telling you this or telling you, hey, thank you. My 27,000 posts that I have, you can go back through there, and I apologized for my posts that I made about John Fetterman. I used to put up the picture of the sloth Goonie guys, hey fellas, and I go, oh, John Fetterman speaking, and after I started listening to him, after he recovered, and I sent him a message saying, hey, I posted a lot of this stuff. I apologize. I was wrong. You are spot on in what you're saying. And some of it was, not Republican bending, but it just made sense. And he might be the only Democrat that might be able to grab hold of the people and go, just stop talking. Just stop. Sit, stop. And there's 50 of you in here. I'm going to say which 3 of you can address me right now. Because all you people screaming and yelling, we're not going to get anything done here. He is the only person in the Democratic Party today. Newsom, even he's questioning, hey, where are we going? You got this kid, and I call him a kid, the vice chairman of the DNC. Who came out and said that democracy is why we have these gun shootings. And democracy is why we have prejudices and hate. It's because of democracy. Don't believe me? Go look it up. What's his name? Hodge or Hoge or Hogg? David Hogg. Absolutely mind-boggling that the Democrats, this is the person they put as vice chair of the DNC. Because we have to get the young people back. You think you get young people by saying, hey, democracy is bad? So, well, I went off on a tangent because I don't like the guy. He is a nut. And that's my opinion, and that's only my opinion. Now, getting back to the visit of the 4 representatives, of course, it was Maxwell Frost, a Democrat from Florida. and I'm going to put, again, I murder these people's names. Rasmin Asari from Arizona, Democrat, of course. Maxine Dexter, Democrat, Oregon. And Robert Garcia, no relation, Democrat from California. And they all went there to the American embassy demanding. And they said, we see zero effort or zero possibility of this guy being returned to the United States to face due process. Yeah. Because he's in El Salvador, he's a citizen, and he's there because if he went back to El Salvador on his own, they would have arrested him because he was a gang member there. Yeah. So they went there visiting and defending an admitted wife beater. He had admitted that he had hit his wife. His wife took out a sworn order of protection, attesting in her own words and handwriting that he had beat her. And she never went to court to actual have a trial. So if she doesn't go to court, they just drop it and out the door it goes. But it's on record. And she said, well, that was 2021 and we got counseling and, everything's been fine then. And then you find out in 2022, was it, that he and a bunch of guys were pulled over and said they were going from a job from point A to point B, 1,300 miles away. No change of clothes. The one guy didn't have was driving on an expired license or something. The officer said he suspected human trafficking. They didn't find drugs. They didn't find a weapon or anything like that. They and I'm sure they looked, and they just gave him a warning ticket to tell them, be on your way, don't speed, and when you get to wherever you're going, fix your driver's license. So there was never a legal proceeding against him. And I understand where people go, well, they didn't do it. They didn't do it. I'm there with them on that. You can have crumbs and you can have dots and everything like that, but you follow the crumbs and then you act on it. You connect the dots and then you got a picture and then you act on it. They never did. But where they did act on was the spousal abuse and the fact that he was here illegally. And of course he said, well, I'm left because he did not come to the border and walk through the border and go, yes, I want to come into the United States. I'm fleeing gang members. They're maybe 2 hours behind me. I'm looking for a sanctuary. And he didn't do that. He snuck in, and then when these problems started to happen, they decided that, well, we better start going through the process and get this guy legal and documented. And then he went and he goes, I can't go back because they'll kill me over there, or they'll put me in jail for a crime I did not do. I'm innocent. And, Biden gave him temporary status, But that temporary status is just to say we know you're here. You're not a citizen. And I think that when this goes to the Supreme Court, they're going to turn around and yeah, they have to agree with Trump on it, because that's exactly what the act says. And of these 4 people, including at a fifth of Senator Von Hollen, not one of them have ever visited the family of a victim of an illegal, or the victim or family of anyone that has been a victim of a crime, period. Not once. Not once did they check to make sure those other people are getting their due process rights. Is the DA following up on it? What's going on with the crime? Are you getting the help that you need? No. Nope. And I keep telling you that come the midterms, this stuff is going to be all over. And they're going to say, is this who you want? Is this who you want your child meeting on a sidewalk, coming home from school? Is this the person you want your wife to meet walking across a parking lot at night? Or is this a person you want to have confront you when you're leaving your job at night? Yeah. Democrats so short-sighted, so looking for a aha moment. We got it. We got it. You're so short-sighted. And it's so easy to manipulate you. And you guys don't even know it. Schumer's sitting back. He's not saying a word. He's like, hey, I got my teeth bashed in. That's the way you want to go? You know, I'm in New York. I'll survive. Which is questionable. You know, and you got Schiff in the Senate. And I mean, he's going to... Haven't even started with him yet. Trump has bigger fish, but believe me, Trump has a trophy rack already made up with Schiff on it where his head's going to be. And the same one, Jasmine in Texas and Crockett, you know, I mean, all these people are going to have their day. Laisha James, now they're getting her on insurance fraud. You think, and I'm not saying it's right, but let me quantify what I'm going to say here. If you don't think a man with the reach that Trump has can't find out every one of your dark secrets, then I'm sorry, you don't understand. You don't get it. You don't see it. And Soros is the same way, and all these people, they're there because they've had so many connections. These other people, you think you can do what you want and you're going unnoticed? No. No one goes unnoticed. That goes for me. That goes for you. That goes for every one of us. If you think you're going unnoticed, now, you might not be interesting to those type of people. But believe me, if something happened and somehow you got connected to them through whatever, believe me how interesting you will become. And how within an hour, they'll have your whole life history from preschool to whatever bar you went to last week. So, and that's the truth. All right. So, with that, I'm going to make this quick because I'm going to try to get this out before midnight tonight. It is my phone here, and I got no phone. It's 4:05, and I started this at 2:50 something, so I've been on for over an hour. This is my spiel. This is about as far as I can get. Please, everyone, say a prayer, even if it's a simple prayer. You'd be amazed. Prayer works. Donate to a charity if you can. I understand charity begins at home, and it will be harder for people. But try. If not, donate food to a food bank. You'll be helping people you have no idea. But if you saw someone and you go, I wish the person needs help, and all right, I gotta make a left turn. Maybe if you dropped off food somewhere, that person would get help. And that came directly from you, but indirectly you have no idea. So there's ways to help people. You don't have to give money. Give food. Don't become a victim helping a victim. That's all I ask. And with that, there will be a show with Alice Incognito sometime this week. But Alice is very busy on the home front, very busy on the work front, and very, very busy in helping the community. So I give her a little leeway. Me, I'm just up here doing my shtick. All right, with that, now I really am going to push the magic button and fade to black.